Hello, my name's Mel Brown and welcome to episode 60 of my crafting podcast. This is my weekly vlog about knitting, crochet, spinning, weaving, dyeing, all kinds of things. I am an autistic woman living in the north of England with my husband, our 3 daughters and 3 cats. You can find me on social media in these places. And this is the last episode in this format. So, if the sound is disconnected from the pictures, that is something I can't do anything about, and it is one of the reasons I'm stopping this format. And I apologise for the very weird hair. It's gone rogue. It's been cut every 10 weeks for years, and now in day 65 of lockdown, it hasn't been cut for quite a while, and it's gone rogue. So I have to put mousse on it to keep it from trying to take over the world. So it looks a bit weird, but what the hell. Right, okay, we're going to have a change of format, and I'll explain all of that a bit later. But for now, let's just dive straight into the content. So where are they now? What's happened to the projects that you've already seen? Let's start, as always, with the Advent blanket. Now this is so close to, well, not the end, so close to the next stage that you'd think I'd be cracking on with it, because that's what I do, but I'm not. I've done 11, cracked through 11 really quickly, block 11, and as you can see it hasn't been blocked, but 12 I stopped because I had to dye some more yarn. This yarn for the edging I dye myself, and I had run out, so I had to dye a new one, and I think I've got it pretty close to what it was before. Not easy to tell, but I think it was good. So I got as far as I could with the old ball, dyed the new stuff, and I haven't actually restarted since then, which is so here's a pic of what it's going to look like. So that's only 3 by 3, and it's actually going to be 4 by 3. So what I thought I would do is join the blocks with blue and then put a little grey border on. I've got one more ball of the grey. I thought I'd put a little grey border on. I might actually need to order some more because it's going to be quite big by then. I'm just circling around for the grey. The grey is this. I've got one more ball of that, and then I can order some more, I guess, if their company's still open. And yeah, and then put a border on, and then it's over to Andrea to put the fleece on the back. So it's very close really to being finished, but I just don't seem to be able to crack on with it. Haven't done any crochet really this week, much at all. No, that's not true. I haven't done any project crochet. I've just done little library things. So that's Advent. Yeah. Okay, that's work in progress number 1. Number 2 is the Golden Willow, which is a brioche pattern, and I have made some progress with that. I was quite excited to get to the 3 colour bit, but again, because of the colours I've chosen, it is a little bit disappointing. So, oh God, between 3 colours attached at once and all the lifelines. So here's where we were when I spoke to you last. So I finished this section of 2 colour moss, and I've gone on to the 3 colour. And I've done a third of that. Yeah, I think my eternal regret with this project is going to be my choice of yarns. The yarn is beautiful, it's absolutely beautiful, but because 2 of the colours have very little contrast with each other, I feel that's going to mess up the whole project, really. Fine Fish Yarns Yak Singles, absolutely beautiful, merino silk and yak, lovely, lovely yarn. And the project is feeling lovely, and it is going to look nice, but it's not going to look as nice as it could have done if I'd had some more contrast. So yeah, slowly moving on with that, still increasing. There's a bit in the middle, a long bit in the middle where you don't increase, but you do shaping and double big increases and decreases to make pretty leafy shapes. So looking forward to that. So that's all the projects that you've already seen. So that's 2. So let's have a look at what else I've been up to. If you've watched before, you'll know that my local library is planning a yarn bombing event for when they reopen. So they want 100 little crochet things around the library for people to just find and pick up and take home. So I've already done a few little bits and pieces, but this week I've also done these little hearts, which are really cute, and this little hedgehog. I'll put the patterns up here, or just free patterns. So Andrea, I must have shown you these before. Andrea made these books, and she's made some more because it's so fitting for the library. She's made some more, and my friend Sarah has made some hearts as well. So we've got lots of little bits and pieces now, which is great. I must contact them and find out how many other little bits and pieces they've got to see when we should stop. So been doing those, and I started a new project. I've been going on about it for a while. You know, Gemma B Makes. She's a lovely podcaster from Leeds. She had created this pattern. I love slip stitch patterns on socks. There's the Geek sock, which I love, and I did a very simple version in a pattern that I published a little while ago. My daughter appeared. So I wanted to try this pattern that Gemma had done with slip stitches, and I had started it, but the yarn wasn't right, and yeah, anyway, I restarted it, and I'm just looking around now trying to find it. So I wanted to use some of my Claire Nettleship self-striping because I love her colours so much, and I have a lot of her self-striping yarn. So I twinned up, and this is a really good match of pattern and yarn. Absolutely brilliant. I'm really delighted with it. Lizzie, if you're watching this and you want a surprise, look away. So you can see straight away the effect of the slip stitch. It's just really cool. And the colours. This is a colourway called Creative Escape, which Claire actually designed with to my requests. We worked on it together. Obviously all the genius comes from her. I just told her roughly what colours I wanted. And it was for my last retreat, so everybody on the retreat got a skein of this. And I absolutely love it. The colours are coming out really nicely on the video. So I did make a bit of a boo-boo. Generally, on the foot underneath, you don't do the pattern. You do the pattern just on the top of the foot, and then once you've turned the heel, you do it on both sides, just on both sides of the leg. Well, I started and I realised straight away that I was doing it on both sides when I'd just done one repeat. And I thought, oops, shouldn't do that. And I thought, actually, it looks really lovely and it's easy to keep track of it if I do it that way. So I carried on. When I'd done 4 repeats, it suddenly occurred to me why we don't normally put the pattern on the bottom, because it's got texture. And people don't want to be walking on texture, do they? So I said to Lizzie, oops, I've done that. And she said, well, to be honest, I can feel the stitches anyway in my hand knit socks. So I don't tend to wear them out all day. I tend to just wear them around the house. So it doesn't really matter that much. So I decided anyway to stop. So here's the first join where I have not done it. Of course I could frog it back, but I'm not going to. So this is going to be the foot, and hopefully it won't be, this texture on this part won't be too distracting for her. And from then on I will do it without the texture. So and the other stupid thing is I've made so many pairs of socks, dozens of pairs of socks, and you would think that I wouldn't do this, but I got partway up the toe and I thought, I don't like the fact that it's got these flat lines and then it goes into that. And then I thought, well, why didn't I just start the toe in a different colour? I've got loads of minis in different colours. I could have done, I'm going to do a contrasting heel anyway, because I don't want to break the pattern on the front of the foot. So why didn't I just cast on in a different colour? And that never occurs to me until I've got partway through the toe. And then I'll just don't give it up, I just carry on. I don't know, it's a mental block of mine. I just think, oh, yarn, I want to knit with it. I want to see what it looks like. Anyway, So it would have looked better if I had done a different colour, but never mind. It is what it is. So they're started and they're very easy. And the pattern, this yarn has got about 3 or 4 rounds in one colour. So because they're slightly offset, you can see this one changes a row or so before this one. So all you do is you just potter along knitting, and then when you notice the colour changes, you just fit in with the previous pattern of slips, and otherwise it'll be wonky, and I've tried that before and it's not good. So once it changes, you do something a little bit different. You slip 2 in every 4, and then the second round, when you come back to that, you slip 1 of those 2 that you slipped, and then you knit normally. So it's lovely knitty knit project, but there's also a little bit of interest because you're watching for the next change. It's good. It's perfect for me. It's just a perfect balance of interest and mindless knitting, and I absolutely love the way it looks. I just can't tell you, I love it so much. So well done, Gemma. It's a brilliant little slip stitch idea, and well done, Claire Nettleship, for dyeing this beautiful yarn. So very happy with that. It doesn't have a name yet, that pattern, so it's Gemma B slip stitch. So there we go. Okay. So what else have I been doing? So you know, I was wanting to do a double knitting pattern called Bipolar by Alistair Post Quinn. So I did a swatch for it. It's very unlike me, and swatching is something that I generally feel is a really, really bad idea. But this isn't that kind of swatching. It's not gauge swatching. It's swatching for the technique. So I made this little swatch, which he does on his blueprint course. Now, do you know what's really distressing? Craftsy, which is now known as Blueprint, is going bust. So I have just bought a year's subscription so I can get all these wonderful courses, and it's going bust. Obviously, it's a bigger disaster for the people who work for them and all that stuff, but it's very disappointing anyway. So there's the double knit. So if you haven't come across double knitting before, the concept is that you're knitting 2 pieces of knitting at once. So you're knitting that side and you're knitting that side, and it's hollow. So these 2 points here can be pulled apart. It becomes linked where you change the colours. So I'm dark, 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 and I put in a light here. On this side, I'm light, 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 I put in a dark there. And at that point, the 2 yarns cross over inside the piece and pull it together. If we didn't do that, it would be 2 separate pieces. So that's the concept. It takes a bit of getting your head around. It's a little bit like brioche in that sense. But once you've got your head around it, and for me, I'm working with 2 colours at once. So it's a bit like colour work, which I haven't done an awful lot of. And I did this first swatch with throwing, so the British style, throwing both yarns with my right hand. And so when you're moving the yarns forward and back all the time together, and then you only throw one of them onto the stitch, and getting the right one on is a little bit slow. I put something on Instagram about that last week. But this, my friend Kathy, who's doing it with me, and actually Andrew's going to do it too, she was doing the continental method for one of the yarns and British method for the other. So I had a go at that, and I made a second swatch with that, and I found that much faster and in fact more fun. I frogged that swatch. Can't remember why, because I think I'd found out what I needed to from it. So the gauge on this is pretty much bang on what I need for the pattern. But then I changed my technique, and I was stupid, didn't check the gauge before I frogged the second swatch. So I decided to make, in his course on Craftsy, which I can just about still access, he suggests another pattern which is called the Divino, which is a wrist warmer. I decided to start that and do that in the new technique, because I just felt that my tension isn't very even. You can see from here, particularly around the edges, the tension is not very even. But when you're going in the round, you don't have these edges. So, but also I felt I needed a little bit more practice, and that swatch is obviously done flat, whereas the bipolar is done in the round. So I wanted to do some practice in the round. So I started this, which is the Divino. Now what you can't see is how thick it is. It's, as I say, 2 layers. And this is going really well. So looking at my gauge, I don't have as many inconsistencies, and I'm definitely getting better at it. So basically what I'm doing, in that case I hadn't explained it properly to you, I have the pink yarn in my left hand tensioned as if to crochet for the British, and as if to knit for the US guys, and then in my right hand I have the blue. So I can knit with the pink or I can knit with the blue, and that takes some getting used to. So yeah, I've been working on that. I'm 15 rows in, rounds into the 25 round pattern. So I am going to finish that before I start the bipolar. It's much more preparation than I normally do for a pattern. I'm normally straight in at the deep end. But I just feel, I think it's because I really love the yarn that I got, the Erica Knight Blue 100, is really nice yarn, and I'm really worried about messing it up. But also it feels like an education opportunity, and I never miss out on one of them. So that's that, and that's in progress. I don't think I've put that on Ravelry yet, actually, because I was just kind of considering it to be a swatch, but it is actually a proper project. So that's in progress. Pretty much as soon as I finish that, I'm going to crack on and cast on. The other 2 ladies who are doing it with me are ready to cast on too, so that's good. Okay, hedgehog for the library did that to Vina. Oh, okay. I think that is all the knitting and crochet. Okay, over to spinning. So first of all, last week I showed you a single that I'd spun in a Shetland rainbow set that Linda had given me, my friend Linda, and I had spun it all in order, and then I wanted to ply it with thread, and I found this lovely gold thread which Linda told me is a Bergère de France thread I got from Yarn Etc. It seems I got it as a real bargain, because I looked to buy some more. Excuse me. That's water with apple cider vinegar in it. It's really disgusting. It's my first drink of the day. I thread plied it with this gold thread, and I'm actually really pleased with the way it came out. You can't see the rainbow here. Well, you can see all the colours. You can't see it's in rainbow order, but it is, trust me. One thing that was really difficult was it was on. I had to do it onto 3 different bobbins, and of course, if you start purple through to green, then the purple's on the bottom, the green's on the outside of the bobbin, and then you go green through to yellow, the green's on the bottom and the yellow's on the outside. When you're trying to put them all back together in the right order, I had to reverse 2 of the bobbins, which was really arduous, and I could have done it on the ball winder much quicker, but I thought, oh no, I'll just do it this way. No, I've really made hard work of that. But anyway, it's done now. It's all in order, and it's actually, I thought it was quite fine because it's just a single with a thread. I thought it was quite fine, but it turns out that it is about 100 meters, and it's 150 grams, which makes it about 66 meters per 100, which is very thick. Doesn't really make sense to me. I don't know if I've miscalculated, but it doesn't look any thicker than, much thicker than DK to me. And it also surprised me that the fibre in it is 100 grams, and yet the finished yarn is 150, so that's 50 grams of that gold thread. I don't know if I'm I don't know. So I have no idea what I'm going to do with it. I was talking about mitts, but that's a really stupid idea because that's in 2 pieces, isn't it? So you're not going to get to see the full. rainbow effect. I think it wants to be a scarf or a cowl or something that you will see the whole effect in. If you can hear bumps, it's people doing exercise upstairs. As we're in lockdown, all our exercise is either walking in the village where we live, which is, we're lucky we've got a lot of walks in the village we live, but you know, exercise in the bedroom. So that's that. I'm very happy with that. And then I had a braid. Now, where is it? That my friend Adriana sent me from Dina's Home of Crafts, which is this. It's 150 grams of Jacob. And I started spinning it, and it, you know that thing, spinners, you know, when you kind of, you're doing spinning some fibre and it actually wants to be a bit different to what you wanted it to be. And I've heard a lot of spinners say, just, you know, go with the fibre. Well, the fibre wanted to spin very fine, finer than I normally spin. So I did a whole bobbin, and it's quite squishy. I like it. I tried a couple of different techniques. I wanted to preserve the colour. So I thought at first I tried to do faux lags, which is something that I was watching on video. But the colour changes. You know, this nice long blue one, but then there's a really short purple one. They weren't really big enough to do that. And the staple seems to be quite long. So when you're drafting it out, I'm getting a lot of the blue and the purple together. So it didn't really work, the faux lag thing. So I just decided to spin across the top, which is not my favourite way of doing things. But actually I got fairly good at it. I mean, you can see here, there's the orange, and then there's the little bit of pink, and then a little bit of purple before it goes blue. We're trying to get those little bits, particularly with a long staple length. It was quite tricky, but that's fine. I mean, that's kind of a learning experience, and that's what I'm after. And then there's this great big long stretch of blue. So there are long stretches, particularly as it's so fine and it's taking ages to spin, which is great because it means it's keeping me out of trouble for ages. So this is how much is left, and I did a whole bobbin. But this is when the problem started. I had a whole bobbin of singles, and I had originally thought I'd thread ply it, but when I realised how fine it was going to be, I realised that the thread wasn't going to be comparatively much smaller than the single, like I thought it would be. And I thought, okay, well, if it's very fine, and because for most of the sections I'm getting a long stretch of one colour, I'll just Navajo ply it. So I Navajo plied it, and I had a very miserable day. My Ashford is a bit of a funny beast, and I do my traditional spinning, you know, fine spinning, smooth spinning on that. So I applied it on that, and I had two really big problems. The single was very twisty. It was very fine, just to be quite twisty. And the lazy case I have isn't tensioned. So when you pull off, with Navajo plying, obviously you pull off a chunk, and then you let that wind in, then you pull off another chunk. Well, when I pull off a chunk, the bobbin keeps turning after a nice stop, and it throws off a whole load of single, and then that gets caught in the sides of the bobbins, and then that makes all the stuff that's already come off is much more twisty, so it's much more difficult to ply, and when it gets caught in the side, it breaks because it's quite fine. So that was causing me problems, and just to make it worse, when I had to stop plying to sort out the twisty mess or the whatever, the Ashford went backwards, and I don't really know how to stop that. I think I've got 1 foot treadle, and I think I need to keep my foot on the treadle, whereas normally when I stop treadling I take my foot off. So I think I've got lots of ideas to have how to make this better, but I think I need to stop taking my foot off the treadle. But it goes backwards, so the bobbin throws all this stuff off of the bobbin, and then it wraps around the outside of that bobbin and gets caught up. So when I'm not sorting out problems in my lazy Kate, I'm sorting out problems with my... So the actual twist that's going into the yarn is completely arbitrary because I'm not focusing on that at all. So I did most of a bobbin full, and I just at the end I wanted to throw the Ashford out the window. I was so annoyed with it. Here it is. I've set the twist just to see if it's okay. It's very under twisted in places, and you can actually see the you know, when you do the crochet chain, and you can actually see it in places, so it's under twisted. I don't know whether I can rectify that now that I've set the twist. I don't know. I might just try putting it through the wheel again and just putting a bit more twist in it. And yeah, but there are long sections of one colour, which is really nice. I do like that, but it's also fairly random, and there's some bits where there are different colours in. So it's nice. It's going to be really usable. But there are bits like this. Can you see that? Where the ply has just twisted itself up and I haven't noticed it, and it's sticking out, which is probably what we call a feature. And there's probably a few of those, and yeah, it's not a good job. And because I really wasn't plying, I was just troubleshooting my equipment. So a few things to try and sort it out. First of all, as I said, either I could just not take my foot off the treadle. My husband also said, why don't you ply on the other wheel? And that's sometimes these really obvious things just don't occur to me. Just because it's traditional spinning doesn't mean I can't do it on the Magicraft. So yeah, I'm gonna try applying the other half of that bobbin on the Magicraft and see if that works. And then I need to tension my Lazy Kate a bit, particularly with Navajo plying, with you putting off kind of chunks at a time. It is an issue. So there's a hack that I looked up that enables you to tension, DIY tension your Lazy Kate. Or I might just throw the bobbin in a shoebox and hope that the singles, if they're not pulling too far off, if they're not untwisting themselves, that they're strong enough to cope with that. I don't know. I'll try some other different things, but there's plenty more to go at. And yeah, so it's great. It's a really good experience. I have spun Jacob before, but I didn't get this experience of it wanting to be super fine. But I was a bit of a newbie, more of a newbie spinner then. I still am a newbie spinner. So that's a good project, and it's a longer one, and I'm enjoying that. I made a little bit of art yarn for Andrea. She loves purple, and I had some of my purple singles from the Tour de Fleece last year, so I just kind of plied them with a soft blue mohair. Just made this little bit of yarn here, so it's got these kind of coils on it and this big fuzz when it's not coiling. I'll try and undo the little mini. It's only a tiny skein. It's just the singles that didn't make it into yarn. So yeah, and this is for weaving. So as we've talked about before, that would come to the front, a little bit there, and then the other stuff can just sit behind or whatever. So that's for Andrea. Can't see her at the moment because of lockdown. When I go to the butcher's, I tend to do a couple of other sort of things whilst I'm on the same trip. Actually, I'm doing Asda Click and Collect today. Okay, so that's the spinning. Weaving, this is the second week in a row I haven't had a finished weave to show you, and it's really funny because I was just cranking through them at such a pace. And this one is blues and greens, which is pretty much my favourite, and I've got loads of art yarn, so I would have thought I would have been doing this really fast, but I'm not. And I think one of the issues is I've been quite disappointed at how my art yarn appears in the weave. Some of the really nice varied texture stuff is just getting lost in the warp, and I think I'm loath to carry on because I don't want to use any more of my art yarn when it's not going to be seen properly. So I had a chat to Adriana about it. She lives in the States, and she's more experienced spinner than me. Weaver, that would help, wouldn't it? Weaver. And I said, I wonder if I should use thinner warps and spread them out more, maybe get a heddle that has a bigger gap. And she said, you don't need a bigger heddle, just thread every other slot. And I'm just trying to get my head around that. So obviously you've still got to get slot hole, otherwise you won't get shared. Right, where was I? Missing out every other slot. Now of course you need one to be in a slot and one to be in the hole. So you'd have to have a slot and a hole here, then a slot and a hole missed, then a slot and a hole here. So the warp thread wouldn't be evenly spaced. There'd be no gap between two, and then there'd be a gap of two between that and the next pair. Anyway, I'm sure it'll work fine. And then if I make sure that my warps are fairly thin mostly, that would add to it. But so I'm quite excited about that. And in fact, that's interesting in that there would be, I don't know whether in the wet finishing process whether those gaps would even out and the kind of the warp threads would kind of, I doubt they would actually spread out. So you might have gaps that are, you see more of the warp, sorry, you see more of the weft here than you do, you know what I mean. Anyway, I need to try that out. If you're an experienced weaver and you've got thoughts on that, do let me know. Dyeing, all I've done is dyed the yarn for the Advent, and I did the last of the Cotswold locks, but I think you've probably seen enough of lock dyeing now. Okay, plans. So the issues I'm having with technology, I've explained a bit before, but this is an old laptop I'm using, and the sound is not good. It's better than my new laptop, a lot better, but it's not good. And you can see I've had a break, so I've made myself a cup of tea. And also software, and also just ready for a change really. I've been doing been battling technology for 2 years, and I'm ready for a change. So the new format is going to be very much suck it and see, but it's going to be based on Instagram, but my clever friend Sarah suggested that you can copy directly to YouTube, and you can. I've tried that out, and you might have already seen that. So let's say you're a YouTube viewer and you don't use Instagram, you don't want to use Instagram. You will still see updates from me, but instead of having a sort of 40 to 60 minutes once a week video like this, it will be broken into smaller chunks. So every week I'll try and record a knitting and crochet update, and I'll show what I'm working on. I might put in clips. It'll be easier for me to put in clips that I've recorded on my phone of me doing stuff as well. So that might be more varied, and it'll give you the opportunity as well. If I'm just a knitting and crochet person, not really interested in the spinning and weaving, then you can just see the knitting and crochet one come up, great, I'll watch that. See the spinning one come up, say, no, I'm not going to bother. The disadvantage for you is that it may spam you a little, because rather than if you've got notifications set, then instead of just one a week telling you that there's a video, there might be several a week, which might feel a bit like spam. So that's a possible downside for you. But otherwise, you should get pretty much the same content on there, just in smaller batches. The other thing is I'm not going to be doing show notes on Ravelry. So if you want to have a look at stuff, I will, yeah, you can always comment on a video on YouTube, and I will respond. I respond the same day to all comments. You can also look at me on Ravelry, and my project's pretty much up to date usually, so you can see the patterns and whatever, but you can always ask a question. So that's for you guys who are staying with YouTube. Those of you who are already on Instagram, or who are thinking of joining Instagram, I explained last week how to set it up so you got notifications. So if you click on my profile on Instagram. So find me Mill Brown Crafting Podcast, click on my profile. In the mid left, you can click on following and it drops down, and then click on notifications. And then within that, click on IGTV, so that when I publish an IGTV, you'll get a notification. Now, obviously, if you just want to pick it up, if it comes up in your feed, that's great. But if you wanted to kind of replicate the YouTube experience of being told that there's something to watch, then that's the way to do it. And that's more or less it. As I say, I'm going to break it down into the same sections as I do at the moment, but it may be that morphs. It may be that I do more pictures of me, more videos of me doing stuff. I don't know exactly how that will work with my phone and my iPad, but I might get other people to record a little clip, because let's face it, there's a lot of people around here at the moment. All my family are here. And as and when things open up, I might, be able to add in some video of me being out and about and things. So it'll evolve, but that's what's going to happen. So this is the last podcast in this format that you will see. Okay, other plans. Linda, I call her my design partner, but basically she does all the designing, and then she has the good grace to put my name on the pattern along with hers. She's designed a new pattern, and I'm going to test knit it for her. And it looks, from the stuff she's sent, it does look better in a solid yarn, solid colour. I don't have an awful lot of solid colours, so I thought I'd give this a go. This is a Claire Nettleship Yarns, one of a kind. It's coming out pretty well, so you can see the big splash of teal. It goes into slightly darker teal on its way to a dark grey. Now, I don't like to knit with dark colours generally, but this is a lace pattern, so I think it'll be nice and open. I think it'll be okay. And I just love the colours, and I don't know, it might obscure the design a little bit. It might not. We'll just have to give it a go. But I really want to use this skein, so I'm going to cast that on fairly soon, and I'll give you updates on that. And also the crochet project mystery crochet along, starting, I want to say 17th of June. It's from the crochet project, said that. It's called While We Were Waiting, or While We Waited. While We Waited, inspired by the lockdown. So they suggest 3, you can do it in a smaller one or a bigger one. I've decided to go for the bigger one. So it wants 300 gram skeins of sock weight yarn. Said variegated and self-striping kind of would work. So I went stash diving yesterday, and I came up with these 3, and I wanted to know what you thought. So the first is a Countess Ablaze sock blank that Sarah gave me in the swap. So it's a single thread one, which is why I think it'd be perfect for this. So it starts at this glorious colour, finishes at this glorious colour, and it's got sparkle in, isn't it? Yeah, I thought so. And obviously, let me just whip it off its whatnot. Yeah, it's pretty cool. So that's one. This is another one, Noodle Soup yarn, in petrol green. So you can't really see the tonal stuff there. There's goes from teal to green, and there's lots of sparkle. And then this one, which Sarah dyed for me. Pinks, purples, lighter, darker, really lovely. I thought those 3 might be good. What do you think? There's another couple of options that might fit in. There's this icicle sparkle sock, which is from Twisted Yarns. And then there's this giddy yarn. This is left over from I want to say it was a Stephen West I did. Yes, Starflake. This one, so this is the only one that's actually solid. I don't know. What do you think? 3 of those. Tell me what you think. The girls chose these 3 last night. It's really difficult with mystery cows because you don't know what it's going to look like, but I don't know. Anyway, that's the plan. And the scrap project, someone was asking last week what I'm going to do with my scrap sock yarn. Well, my friend Kathy from the US said you can actually search I hadn't thought of this. If you just, you know, you search on Ravelry for patterns, if you just put Scrappy, and that's not a word that I would use really. It's a character from Scooby-Doo, his little nephew, Scrappy. But I would use scrap yarn, but I wouldn't use Scrappy. But if you search for patterns, Scrappy in the title, and then attributes crochet and whatever, knitting, and then 4-ply. Anyway, it comes up with a whole load of really good patterns, and I found one I really love called Zigzag Scarf, and quite a few others actually as well. So I feel much more confident now that I'm going to get something I can do with those scraps, which is great. And I've just paid for the other half of my Felt Fusion calendar, advent calendar, which is going to be 24 20-gram sparkle minis. So I will need a project for them. And yeah, there's plenty. Absolutely brilliant. Really great thing to know that I could search for those. So projects galore for that. What else? Oh, the bipolar. Yeah, I'm going to start the bipolar. I wound the yarn. Yes, it's DK. I don't often work with DK. It's nice though. Obviously, it works a bit quicker. And I think it's 4mm needles. So it's all bagged up and ready to go. Yeah, so that's all good. Right, the stash project. I really hope to get to 1 kilo. Oh, hello. 1 kilo of stash out this month. Taken off that what comes in. And I'm at 939 at the moment. Minus 939. I was at 904 last week. All I've done this week is just do little things. So I need to, before Sunday, which is the last day of the month, I need to finish something big. And I think it's going to be the weave. I'm about halfway through that, so I think I need to finish that. I definitely need 61 grams of finished item. I wonder how much the Divino double knit thing is. Anyway, I want to finish something this week to get me to 1,000. I don't think with the pace of my weaving, if I don't get back to my previous pace, I don't think I'm going to be able to do that 1,000 again, a kilogram again, but I do want to do it this month. So, oh, something new. Look at this, so cute. It's from these guys, Katie Green. Adriana saw it and thought of me, so she sent it. So it's not yarn related as such, but it English sheep breeds. Well, it is British sheep breeds, I should say. Sorry. And it's really interesting. It's got a few on that I've actually spun, but not many. Most of them I haven't. There's Romney down there. I've definitely spun Romney. Jacob in the middle there. Oh, we've got a cat. Hello. Hello. Did you come on for the last podcast? He tried to come on for the first and I was meant to add him on at the end, but I forgot. So here he is. He's our old fella Clyde. So yeah, pretty cool. I hadn't used it yet because I wanted to show it to you. Now I can put it to use. So that's my last something new. Let's just grab this cat. He's very tangled underneath. He's a very old man. And his skin is very, very thin. And when we try and brush his tangles out, it really hurts him and he gets upset. So we don't do it. We try and cut lumps out of him. We did have a groomer in, but that was a terrible experience. So now we just try and keep on top of it as best we can. And yeah, it's purring. Can you hear him? He's so lovely. Okay, so that is the end of the podcast in this format. I will post, what day is it today? Tuesday. I will start probably from tomorrow gathering information. I might have a static day like I do knitting on a Monday, I do spinning on a Tuesday, I don't know. I'm autistic, so that kind of thing does appeal to me, but it might not work with anything else that's going on. But yeah, I'll crack on with that. If you have any questions about the changeover of formats, any concerns about it, just let me know. But I think whatever your tech preferences are, I think you'll still be able to see pretty much everything you are seeing now. Okay, so thank you for watching. I just want to say a heartfelt thank you for watching. I've been doing this for 2 years and I really enjoy the process of sharing and making contacts with people making comments. Now, I've got friends that I talk to every day on Instagram who I met through this podcast, and it's been absolutely lovely, and I just hope that I can continue that over on Instagram. So thank you. Happy crafting. I'll see you soon. Bye.